We are live with you here in Martinsville, Virginia. Michael Robertson hosting once again on What Does the Bible Say? I want to make sure that you know that you can reach us. Friends, taking a different position tonight because with some of the things that have transpired, I'm not wanting to come across in such an, what might seem like an aggravated position or an overly assertive position, friends. As one individual put it, I just want to speak to your hearts tonight. I want you to really pay attention to what it is that's being said. I don't want to take any tone. I just want to present information that is going to contrast between the churches of Christ and the different things that are going on in our community. Because if you have watched The Buzz, I believe on Monday, or Tuesday rather, The Buzz on Tuesday, and then the Headliner show that was on Monday night following the show that Caleb and I did on Sunday night on What's the Bible Say in the Reedsville station, you know that there's been a lot of back and forth going on between us and Malvester, Mr. Keene there in Danville, the president of the SCLC, and different ones that were involved in the March to Stop the Violence, Tommy Bennett and Jessica Griffith over the past few shows. And friends, the reason why that is because we are wanting to make sure that you are able to see a distinguishable difference between us and them. The things that we are actually doing and the things that they claim that they're doing. Now, as we have this behind us, number one, the simple fact that you have the Church of Christ here in Martinsville, Virginia, also in Danville, Virginia, and Eden, North Carolina. The Brethren in Eden still have their television program. The Danville Brethren helping us with Mark McMinnis in the past. The fact that you have a broadcast, number one, that allows you to call in and to ask your biblical questions. And on top of that, to get a biblical answer. Now, people may not like the answers that we give, but we can't help that. People just don't like what the Bible has to say. But we're not just keeping this information locked into Martinsville, Virginia, or Reedsville, North Carolina, or the surrounding areas. As you can see on the screen behind me, we're also streaming live on YouTube this evening. And we've got individuals in the Philippines. We've got people from the East Coast, over on the West Coast, California, that are watching this broadcast, and then every state in between. Dad has gotten phone calls from New Mexico. I mean, we're getting this information out not only for members of the Lord's church, or I should say not just for those that are not members of the Lord's church, but also for those that are members of the Lord's church. And we're going to get to a review. This is our Facebook page for the Martinsville Church of Christ. We're going to get to a review that somebody left on our page in just a moment, because we have individuals that are saying, well, you know, the Church of Christ, they're up to no good. They're really not set about to accomplishing anything. And as we are going through our sermon tonight, or our study tonight, I want to start with this verse. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 7, Paul writes to the brethren there, and he says, "But we were gentle among you, even as a nurse cherisheth her children." Tonight, that's what I'm wanting to try to do. I'm not wanting to be sarcastic in any way. I just want to try to lay out the evidence in the simplest way in surrounding the situations that have occurred. Verse 8, "So being affectionately desirous of you, we were willing to have imparted unto you not the gospel of God only, but also our own souls, because ye were dear unto us." This is what we're striving to do and what we're striving to be at the Martinsville Church of Christ, the Danville Church of Christ, and the Eden Church of Christ. Affectionately desirous of you. The reason why we do these broadcasts and the reasons why we do the things that we do, like go to Stop the Violence March. People are asking us, why would you even go to that? You know that you're opposed to everybody that's there. Okay, so all of a sudden, just because we're opposed to somebody, we're supposed to stay away. If that's the case, then the Senate and the House of Representatives would never meet. Because on one side you got Democrats, on the other side you got Republicans. Well, they're never going to come together, so why even meet? You've got opposing viewpoints trying to come together, and they're voicing their opposing viewpoints so as to meet some type of common ground. And ladies and gentlemen, that's all we're trying to do with you. We know that we're opposed. But the very fact that we're opposed ought to raise a question in your mind, why are we opposed? Now, I know a lot of people don't even like to think about that. They're not even wanting to contemplate the confrontation that's going to come from spreading, teaching the gospel, imparting the gospel to others. But notice how the Apostle Paul was. So being affectionately desirous of you. You have Paul's affection, and it states that he was desirous. He's desiring them. We were willing to have imparted unto you not the gospel only, but notice this, we also our own souls, because ye were dear unto us. Ladies and gentlemen, I would ask for you to consider who in this community, in going out and trying to establish truth and to uncover the dirty deeds of individuals in the community, who's doing that for you? Who is so affectionately desirous of you that we're not only willing to impart the gospel unto you, but also our own souls, because you are dear unto us, that we're willing to give of ourselves, lay ourselves out on the line. Ladies and gentlemen, that's nobody but the churches of Christ. Do you see anybody else having hands laid on them, being pushed outdoors, having mobs surround them and back them up to their car? Do you see any other religious organization going through that for you so that we can impart the gospel unto you? No, you're only seeing that with the churches of Christ. The churches of Christ are the only ones laying themselves out. I would say we would have to be the only religious organization here in town that won't even get a fair representation even from the police. We've even got the police mishandling us, mistreating us. Try to enforce law that actually is not even law, and then going and talking to those that are in charge of the officers and they actually admitting, no, he wasn't supposed to do that, but it's your word against his. But you see there, we have all that on record. Now who's doing that for you? Who is so concerned with truth that we would even go against and who would even dream of recording the head of police? Just so that we can make sure that everything is fair and balanced and that we have equality. Now what is it that's ultimately going to do that for us? Friends, when you read throughout the Bible and how it is that we're going to have peace, the only way that we're going to have that, the only person who's going to come through is Jesus Christ. Zechariah chapter 9 and verse 9, when he is prophesied of making his entry into Jerusalem, it says that he is lowly, sitting upon the foal or the colt of an ass, of a donkey, bringing peace. So what is that we're actually trying to do? We're trying to bring peace, but the only way you can have peace first is that you've got to start with some form of controversy. Look, you can't have peace without going to war. We as Americans, we have a saying, freedom isn't free. Well, guess what? Peace is not peace without war. For ye remember, brethren, our labor and travail. For laboring night and day, because we would not be chargeable unto any of you, we preached unto you the gospel of God. Ye are witnesses, and God also, how holily and justly, and I would like to point out this part in verse 10, unblameably we behave ourselves among you that believe. Who is it that loses their temper? Who is it that's ready to brawl? Who's taking who to court? You see, you're witnesses. And you've seen all this. Now you might be asking yourself, why are we going through all this? Because I'm wanting to establish from Scripture what it is that I'm wanting to do tonight. I have to keep myself in check. Different shows, I've texted Caleb and I've asked him, was this point too hard? Did I say something here that I shouldn't have? We're concerned about that. And even Monday night when I was calling into the headliners, Caleb was texting me afterwards. At the beginning, you could have started easy, could have cooled down a little bit, but after that you got fine. Now you see that? We're paying attention to each other. We're watching each other. And as we're presenting this information, I'm wanting to make sure that I keep myself in check, that you're able to see it tonight. Look, we are affectionately desirous of you. and we're going to present the gospel to you in contrast to what it is the world is actually doing. As ye know how we exhorted and comforted and charged every one of you as a father doth his children, that you would walk worthy of God, who hath called you unto his kingdom and glory. That's what we ultimately want. We want everybody right here in verse 12. That you would walk worthy of God. But how might we have to get there? Well, we might have to exhort and comfort and charge you as a father doth a child. Now, my dad and I have had some pretty stern talks at different points. Not all the talks were rough, but we've had some rough words. Why? Because he needed to get me in line. Needed to walk worthy of God. You see right there, not anybody's just worthy to walk in accordance with God. There's a certain way that you have to walk. Who hath called you unto his kingdom and glory. Now tonight, let's start. Here's Charles, and here's Jessica, and let's listen to this clip.
Let's be clear.
I want to weigh in on this. I don't think that, I know you're trying to prove a point, but in that process, it doesn't come off looking like a nice guy. And when we look at Christianity, and Micah, I know you really try to be tactful and nice, but your job is difficult because you're tasked to go out and expose all this stuff, but sometimes it looks like a bully.
Now, number one, I would like to say, and what Charles is viewing of Christianity, and listening to it now, I wonder when he says in viewing Christianity, it seems as though he's just referencing us. In viewing Christianity and what it is that we're doing in Christianity, it seems like we're coming across as a bully. Well, to those that are in error, it may seem like we're bullying you. Now, I find that interesting that Charles would bring up the fact of, calling us a bully, and I'm not wanting to necessarily put anything on Charles, but it seems like Charles has gone out and done some things that not even we ourselves, and especially dealing with Jessica, well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, we have done this with a few people, but if you recall, back when Joan Ziegler was campaigning here in Martinsville, there was some controversy going on surrounding an individual on her campaign, and we had this article recorded for us on the Star News website here, and if I need to be blanked out, that's perfectly fine as I zoom in here so we can read this together. Let's get up here and get the headline. Donald Goodman, no comment on Ziegler campaign involvement. And look what we got here. We got us a full face shot, Martinsville, VA, in an effort to pound the pavement at the request of a Star News fan and find out the real scoop about Deputy Assistant Commonwealth Attorney Donald Goodman's work for Joan Ziegler's campaign. Star News took it to the streets and visited Goodman's house to get answers. Goodman would only say no comment when asked if he would take questions about Ziegler's campaign efforts. See the full story on our YouTube channel. Check it out below, which of course the video, or not of course, but the video's been removed. But friends, I think you see the point. Now, how about this? Was Charles wrong for doing this? Now, I remember when Charles did this. I saw the footage. Was Charles wrong for investigating this individual's involvement, and especially if it was questionable that he should even be involved in the campaign? Is it wrong for Charles to go out and to investigate and find out, hey, are you actually doing something wrong? No. In fact, I'm all for that. Man, let's expose it. Go to his house. If you can't get him on the phone, he won't email you, you can't write him a letter, can't send him a carrier pigeon, go to his house. If he's doing evil, let us know about it. Now, how do you think Mr. Goodman felt when Charles showed up to his door? And if I believe correctly, I think Charles actually got a lot of flack on the following shows because of what he did. But you know what? I want to know what's going on. I want the information, I want the evidence, I want to be able to make a logical decision about what's happening in our community. Now, friends, what about in the realm of religion? What about in Christianity? Do you not have the right to know what it is that your preachers actually preach, what it is that people actually believe, and you be able to line that up with what does the Bible say and be able to make your decision from there? Friends, we're not trying to force anything on you. We're just preaching, and you can take it if you want it. If you don't, fine. Hey, I mean, you got a remote just like everybody else. Turn the channel. But guess what? We are so affectionately desirous of you that we're not going to stop. Which I think should bring us to our next clip here as to the question that Charles ends up asking.
I mean, I guess with Jessica, because, I mean, y'all do get her so riled up. I mean, don't you think you've proved your point if you're trying to...
I need you to put it back down.
When's enough enough? When's enough enough? When's enough enough? That's what I want to ask.
When is enough enough? Well, Charles, it wasn't enough for you to call Mr. Goodman, send him emails, or write him letters, or whatever you were doing to try to get information. You went to the gentleman's house so as to let the community know what was going on behind the scenes. Now, in the past, and friends, this is the reason why we continue to press. This is Charles now. When is enough enough? This is Charles back when Dad and another individual who was helping us actually shut down the Natural History Museum here in Martinsville, Virginia. Notice the conversation that's had between Charles and Dad here.
And we're talking about museum, evolution, creation, and a little bit in between.
Could I ask this, Charles? If I can prove that the other preachers in town actually believe the same thing I do, wouldn't that make me a little bit more credible to some of these people that are calling in?
You think most preachers agree with you on this?
All of them. Man, the Baptists are wild. I'm talking about they lead the pack on fighting evolution and the idea that we came 14 million, and none of them are standing up.
Okay. Hello.
Hello?
Yeah.
I just have one question to make. If you believe in evolution, then you can't believe in Jesus. Or God. If you believe in God, then you can't believe in evolution.
I'm with you on that. Are you asking that question, or are you affirming that?
I just wanted to make that comment.
Okay, you're right.
I mean, it's no two ways. You can't be both for both. You got to be the one way or the other.
You understand the issue, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But the thing I want to know is, like, I always thought that museums and educational institutions and that kind of thing were places for people could ask questions. And I see Johnny rolling up, and he's going to ask some questions, and everybody goes running for hiding. What do you think is going on here?
Well, maybe they don't have any answers for Johnny. Maybe they can't answer.
What do you think? I mean, to me, the only thing we can leave this is saying that they're scared of dealing with this.
True. Well, now, let me put this straight. I don't believe in a lot of things that Johnny says.
Okay. What don't you believe in?
Well,
Now we're gonna stop it there, because I mean the conversation that Charles is having with his caller is the very problem that Jessica is having, and the other ministers here in town are having with us also. They don't have any answers. Why would the museum just shut down when Johnny and the other brother who's coming up to help us with this event, why would they just shut down? The caller, I mean, you see it, you're witnesses. They just don't have any answers. Why is it when the Church of Christ comes around, why is it that when we call in to Jessica's show, and most of the time when we're dealing with Jessica's shows, it's because she brings on some other preacher. And what better time to talk to a preacher than when he's on live television in front of the community and ask him questions about the Bible? Now, why would anybody get mad at that? Why would the Natural History Museum just shut down for the day? They don't have any answers. So why are we having the situation that we're having with Jessica? It's really not about Jessica. She's caught in the crossfire. When we went to the Stop the Violence March, we were there for Malvester. We went with the intent to find out, is Malvester going to be here? Are these Christians seriously going to allow a man who does not believe the Bible to be the true Word of God, does not believe Jesus to be the Son of God, the Messiah, he does not believe that Jesus is returning, and we're going to show that tonight, and he thinks the white race, me, is I'm just a devil, and that it was never intended in the Holy Quran or in the Bible for me to be saved. If they were really going to let a person like that in their midst, in their fellowship, in their participation, as a beacon of peace. Now, friends, just stop and consider that. Let's just go ahead and look at those slides. We're going to jump ahead here. Here's the book, Message to the Black Man. You be the witnesses. You be the judge. Who really cares about you this evening? The person who's going to stand up and oppose this, even when everybody hates on us for it? Or are you going to root for the person who's going to hold hands with the man who promotes this information? Notice this, first point. The coming of the Son of Man, the great Mahdi. My greatest and only desire is to bring true understanding of the Word of God, His prophets, and the Scriptures, which the prophets were sent with, pertaining to the lost, found people, the American so-called Negro of God, and the judgment of the world. Notice this second paragraph that I have underlined. You must forget ever seeing the return of Jesus, who was here 2,000 years ago. Set your heart on seeing the one that He prophesied would come at the end of the present world's time, the white race's time. He is called the Son of Man, the Christ, the Comforter. You are really foolish to be looking to see the return of the prophet Jesus. Now, Jessica and Mr. Keene and Mr. Alonzo Hall, and let's see, who else was there? Mr. Larry Campbell, the son of Apostle Campbell, chief apostle of the world. What do they believe? They supposedly believe that Jesus is the Messiah and that He is coming back, which I don't believe this part, but they believe He's supposed to come back and establish an earthly kingdom. Now, friends, don't you believe that? And you're wrong for believing that, but isn't that what you're looking forward to? Now, I'm looking forward to His return, but He's going to return in the cloud, the Scriptures say. And then we're going to be lifted up and we're going to meet Him in the air. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this is Malvester's book. And this is what he says from the book, or this is what Elijah Muhammad says in the book, and Malvester said to us on record, I believe every word written in that book. Now, you don't believe me? Aren't you thankful that the Church of Christ records everything? Let's go ahead and go to the tape. Sorry about that.
Can you talk with me real quick? I'm saying we can get it on video. 100%. Okay. Third of 95. Now, I talked with somebody earlier, and they told me that you probably didn't agree with everything in this book.
I agree with everything in that book, every word.
Okay.
I agree with everything in that book, every word.
Okay.
I agree with everything in that book, every word. I agree with everything in that book, every word.
Okay.
I agree with everything in that book, every word, even this concerning Jesus. Now, y'all, ladies and gentlemen, what business does Malvester have with any of y'all? I was about to say with any of us, but we don't have any business with him. It's y'all. Why are you welcoming him in to your midst? Now that's the issue. As we said, Jessica's just a bystander. That's the issue that we have with Jessica. Jessica as a host on this station, and Jessica Griffith I'm speaking of, but really any host that's on this station ought to be concerned about truth. I mean, isn't that what reporters are supposed to be about? Isn't that what the news is supposed to be about? A lot of controversy going on right now with CNN and some of the reporting that they're doing. Now, here they are as reporters, and secondly, Christians. Jessica Robinson and Jessica Griffith. Christians. But yet, they won't come out and oppose this. They need to cut Malvester out from the things that they're doing. Charles is asking, when is enough enough? When they stop promoting men like this, we'll be getting close. We'll be getting closer to enough. Now, ladies and gentlemen, do you agree with this? This is Malvester's book, and you heard it from his very mouth. I agree with every word written in that book. So he agrees with this. You must forget about ever seeing the return of Jesus, who was here 2,000 years ago. You're supposed to be looking to the one that Jesus talked about. He says, you are really foolish to be looking to see the return of the prophet Jesus. It is the same as looking for the return of Abraham, Moses, and Muhammad. Now, Abraham, Moses, though they're great men, they're just men. Jesus is the Son of God. And yet here's Malvester saying, Jesus isn't coming. How about this? Our first step, this is more from the message to the black man. Our first step is to give back to the white man his religion, Christianity, his church, and his names. These three are chains of slavery that hold us in bondage to them. We are free when we give up the above three. So Malvester believes that Jessica, Mr. Keene, Mr. Alonzo Hall, and any other black preacher in town, that if they are going to be free, they got to give up Christianity. He agrees with every word that's written in this book. The so-called Negroes must know that they have been deceived and must be brought face to face with God and the devil. They must get away from the old slavery teaching that Jesus, who was killed 2,000 years ago, is still alive somewhere, waiting and listening to their prayers. He was only a prophet, like Moses and the other prophets, and had the same religion, Islam. He did his work and is dead like others of his time and has no knowledge of their prayers to him. Now, y'all, we are so concerned. We are affectionately desirous of you, that we will proclaim the gospel to you, and we will even we'll give you our souls. We will give you us, ourselves. Go out and risk ourselves to get this type of footage for you so that you can know beyond the shadow of a doubt that this is what he actually believes. Every word that's written in that book. Now, why? I'm sincerely asking the question. I want you to consider this. Why are you taking up for Jessica? Y'all are wanting to get on us because supposedly we're ganging up on her and we're beating up on her. Look, she brags on herself about being able to overcome adversity, coming over difficulties. She's in and out of meetings with political leaders. All right, if that's the case, then why can't you handle two young men from the Church of Christ? Like the lady said about the Natural History Museum. She has no answers. Because, friends, Ladies and gentlemen, neighbors, she's caught. Now here's the thing about it. While we are exposing her inconsistency, I mean, she's given up on her faith. For her to say that she's a Christian, but yet working side by side with a man that denies everything that she stands for, that's not unity. They're not working together. Is it any wonder then that Danville has the problems that it has? Now, Charles was asking, when is enough enough? Well, let me go back to the beginning here. When is enough enough? Friends, if you have a chicken coop and you've got a possum that's continuously, night after night, trying to get into your chicken coop, kill your chickens, steal their eggs, do you ever reach a point where you haven't been able to kill it and it keeps coming back, you keep having to chase it off? Do you ever get to a point where it's like, you know what? I think enough's enough. I've been chasing this possum off every night now. Let's say it's been months. I think tonight, enough is enough. And I'm just gonna let that possum get into my chicken coop. That's not how you're going to be. You're not going to do that. You're not going to allow that. Now, why would we allow individuals, allow preachers to come in time after time, try to sneak into the chicken coop and devour y'all? Billy Graham, that's why we oppose him. Now, it's been a while since I've talked about Billy Graham, but for years we hit on Billy Graham. When is enough enough? When you stop calling in and taking up for him and upholding him as though he is a Christian and that he actually is a gospel preacher and that he's preaching out of this book, that's when enough is enough. Charles Stanley, he's another possum. Trying to get in there, trying to sneak in and take advantage. Jackie Poe, Jessica Griffith, Malvester Dixon, Larry Luffman. Now, y'all, when is enough enough? You wouldn't just let that possum slide by. Why should we let these individuals slide by when they are teaching things that are not in Scripture and, in fact, upholding doctrines of devils and sending people to hell? Now, a person might be thinking to himself, well, I thought you weren't going to use any sarcasm tonight. Listen, friends, I'm just using the same terms, same illustrations that Jesus used. In Luke chapter 13 and verse 31, the same day there came certain of the Pharisees saying unto him, Get thee out and depart hence, for Herod will kill thee. Now, y'all, this is an interesting point that goes back to what I mentioned a moment ago as to who you're siding with, who it is that you're actually protecting. Here are the Pharisees saying unto him, Get thee out and depart hence, for Herod will kill thee. The Pharisees the whole entire time were opposed to Jesus. But yet what was Jesus doing? He was healing people, he was feeding people, but he was also teaching them, you know what, the Pharisees are not good leaders. They're blind leaders of the blind. They're both going to fall in the ditch. Jerusalem is going to be destroyed. Law of Moses is going to be removed. You need to start following me. And you know what? They hated him for that. But here's my point. Verse 32, And he said unto them, Go ye and tell that fox, Behold, I cast out devils and do cures today and tomorrow, and the third day I shall be perfected. So before anybody gets upset about me calling these individuals possums, look, Jesus called Herod a fox. Now, for different ones to say, you know, they're looking at us and they're saying, this just doesn't seem like Christianity. Well, you just haven't read your Bible. Because Jesus is going around calling people foxes, describing the children of Israel, the nation of Israel, as a fig tree, that's going to be withered up, cut down, and cast into the fire. Going in and out and purposefully doing things that are going to aggravate the community. You don't think going through the field on the Sabbath day in Matthew chapter 12, you really do not think that Jesus knew that was going to cause a fuss when they found out about it? You're not supposed to do any work on the Sabbath day. But you see there, Jesus caused controversy so that he could bring about a teachable moment. And we're going right down there in the very pit of where people do not want us to be. For what purpose? So that we can get for you first-hand information of how these people really are. Philippians chapter 3 and verse 2, Paul would say, beware of dogs, beware of evil workers, beware of the concision. Verses 17 and 18, brethren, be followers together of me, and mark them which walk so as ye have us for an ensample. For many walk, of whom I have told you often, and now tell you even weeping, that they are the enemies of the cross of Christ. Now, friends, let's just stop and let's think about this. In this context, he's talking about the Jews. They are the enemies of the cross of Christ because they're trying to hold to the law of Moses. Some of them, you've got them obeying the gospel, but once they obey the gospel, they're trying to mix in little pieces of Judaism. They're trying to mix in pieces of the law. Paul, the whole entire time, he's having to fight that, and he's having to tell them, no, you can't do that. You can be saved without circumcision. You can be saved without keeping the feast days. You can be saved without sacrificing a bull or a goat or a turtle dove, because Christ has become the one sacrifice that we need. And look at how he describes these people that won't change. Dogs, evil workers, enemies of the cross. Now, friends, we take the same mentality that Paul took, even weeping. I do not have any joy in having to deal with the things that we deal with. But look, Paul's having to deal with them, so we have to deal with them too. When is enough enough? Well, and for some reason, I can't seem to get the Windows Media to come up like it should when I Alt-Tab. Here's a start as to when enough will be enough with Jessica Griffith.
All right, next caller.
Hello.
Yeah, this is for Jessica. Jessica, you just keep being like you are. You're the true Christian. You are sitting there and not handing it back to him, and that's what a real Christian does. You don't have to fall into his trap. That's what he wants you to do, because he has nothing else to do but sit there and criticize someone else. I'm not talking about you, Charles. I'm talking about that caller.
Okay.
So, Jessica, you just keep being who you are and doing what you're doing, because you're a great person, and anyone that can't see that, then they're not the true Christian.
All right,
But you have a nice day.
You have a nice.
Does a true Christian align themselves with a person that would teach from this book that we should stop looking for Jesus to return? Would a true Christian use a person, promote a person in the community, call him a minister on live television that teaches this? Now, friends, again, I'm just wanting to lay it out there. You be the judge. Instead of people calling in and consoling Jessica, y'all should have been jumping on her just as much. Because the man that we're out there trying to confront and trying to expose as being a person that you do not need to listen to, Jessica allows him to call in on her shows without any opposition. And in fact, on that very show where Charles and Jessica are, after Caleb calls in and after I call in.
About her.
Huh? What'd you say?
I told him, Charles, to ask me some questions like you was asking him about her, right? You know, he's fair with the thing. You know what? You on the side with Robinson and them, help trying to beat her up.
No.
Fair.
Oh, that's Malvester. Hey, Malvester.
Here's Malvester calling in again. Caleb asked her about her association with Malvester. I asked her about her association with Malvester. Does she begin to question? I mean, you would think at this point, in the hot water that she is in, that she would finally begin to ask Malvester, Malvester, is what the Robertsons are saying about you true? Do you really believe that Jesus is not the Son of God, that He is just a prophet, that He is not returning, and that the white race is a race of devils? Do you believe that I ought to stop being a Christian? Do you think she does any of that? Do you think Charles asked any of those questions? No. Now, why is that the case? Friends, that's why they crucified Jesus. Because He asked too many questions. Well, actually, if you get down to it, the Pharisees asked Him a bunch of questions. He had the answers because He gave them a "Thus saith the Lord," and He showed their inconsistencies. And the Scriptures say that at a certain point, there's no man ask any more questions of Him. Why is it that we cannot get any comment out of Jessica Griffith? She doesn't have any biblical answers. She has no answers as to why she would want to fellowship with a people like this. I mean, Malvester and his group, I don't know what group he's with. He's not with the Nation of Islam anymore officially. But his sons and different ones that are associated with him, they're working security at the march, Stop the Violence March. Now, with what this book teaches, us white folk were lucky that we even made it out there alive. Because according to his book, we're not even in any hope of being saved. The enemy has tampered with the truth in both books, for he has been permitted to handle both books. Neither the Holy Quran nor the Bible was revealed with the intention of converting the white race into truth and righteousness. Never intended for us to be converted. In fact, later on in one of these pages, I don't think I have it, but if you watch more of our shows where we interview Mr. Malvester, Caleb asked him about a section in the book where it says, this individual, Elijah Muhammad, actually says that because of the information, if a white man picks up this book, because of the information that's in it, he ought to go and commit suicide. Now, ladies and gentlemen, would a true Christian fellowship this type of person? What I'm asking you to do tonight is to lay aside your affections and to look at the evidence. Think about what's being presented here. This is what Malvester stands for. This is what we're going to expose. And who's standing in our way? The true Christian. If she is in fact a true Christian, and Mr. Keene and Mr. Alonzo Hall and the other ministers that are there are true Christians, whose side do you think they ought to be on? Should they be over here trying to protect Malvester, or should they not be trying to expose him? But you see, that's another distinguishing mark between the Church of Christ and man-made churches in the area. Notice here later on, it's actually in the same call. Let's let it play through.
No, I'm not trying to beat her up. I'm trying to make her stronger.
Do you think I'm not strong, Minister Malvester? I mean, I've dealt with...
Oops, sorry about that.
Him about her.
Huh? What'd you say?
I told him, Charles, to ask me some questions like you was asking him about her, right? You know, he's fair with the thing. You know what? You on the side with Robinson and them, help trying to beat her up.
No.
Fair.
Oh, that's Malvester. Hey, Malvester. No, I'm not trying to beat her up. I'm trying to make her stronger.
Do you think I'm not strong, Minister Malvesta? I mean, I've dealt with so much. My father died. I've dealt with a lot of things. Why do you keep saying I'm not strong?
Well,
We're saying that you're not a strong Christian. Which, I mean, in fact, again, you're not a Christian. A Christian would not align themselves with Malvester and would not be asking him for any type of advice and allowing him to come in and defend me. The last thing that I would want as a Christian is for the person who says that Jesus is just a prophet and is not returning to then call in and start taking up for me. Y'all, let's pay attention here.
But we can all be stronger. You know, every day I think we become stronger if we learn.
The black woman is the strongest person on the planet. Look what she done been through. The black woman is strong. You ain't have to worry about that. She's strong.
Okay.
And the point is this, that she handling everything on there. Her show probably outrated everybody else, and so, you know, she doing a good thing, and she handling it. But my thing is this, that what's his name, Michael or whoever?
Yeah. Micah.
They are truly cowards. They want to jump on a woman. Tell them to come on and get me on the program with you and let us bow.
Okay.
Big talk from a man that we can never get to come on the show with us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would go and show you the clip again, but I mean, you already saw it. Would a coward go out and confront a man amongst a group of people? Does that sound like something a coward would do? But where's Malvester? Oh, he's hiding behind a phone. He's wanting to hide behind Charles and Bob Sharp, who he says are the devil. Why in the world? With his book saying that the white race is nothing but a race of devils, why would he even trust Charles and Bob to help him in a debate? It's just so that he doesn't have to be on here with us by himself.
Well, I do think Mike just proved his point. If he doesn't think Jessica's going along with him, I don't think she wants to go along with him. I mean, that's just what I see. And it's like I don't think you can make somebody do what you want them to do, and I think sometimes that creates the problem for them.
She don't need no validation from them.
Yeah.
Who are they? They don't have no value with people. They terrorize people. I told them they could do some good if they just taught the Bible and stop terrorizing people. They got the wrong spirit.
Mm-hmm.
But all I see them do is try to tear down people and make people come into what they in. And what they in is what we supposed to have. I wouldn't want none of that, because all of that is totally they terrorizing everybody.
Right, and I'm not speaking for them. Their side of it is.
Now, what's terrorizing about coming and asking questions about what you believe as your faith and documenting it on camera? That's really terrorizing. We've never threatened anybody, never laid hands on anybody, never threatened to sue anybody. We just want people to give a defense. Good evening, caller. You're on What's the Bible Say?
Yeah, I just wonder if maybe rather than asking why Jessica doesn't disavow Malvester, why not instead ask her if she in fact believes that white individuals or the white race is inferior. You got to wonder if a person won't disavow someone that she partners with that advocates that if it's not the fact that she actually believes that herself. Do you think that's a fair question?
I believe that is a fair question. With what we're showing tonight, you would think any sensible person would say, okay, I'm going to begin to distance myself from that because I do not want people to think that, and the fact that we have somebody calling in and asking that very question is basically proving the point that people are possibly thinking that. So I believe that's a fair question.
Just to make sure that people don't think that that's a racially based attack, haven't we just witnessed the same thing on the other side of the coin with President-elect Trump? People were extremely upset that he refused to disavow the KKK.
Right. And
they had a valid point. Whether or not he actually advocated them in fact or not may be a different matter, but it makes people wonder if he didn't disavow them, then does he in fact believe the same thing? So I think that's a legitimate question.
Right. So caller, it is better to just go ahead and come out and state your side.
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to make things clear in such a racially charged environment to begin with?
Right. Yeah, we're hearing some pretty scary things about, Danville and situations there. The last thing that you're needing is some unclear communication. You're exactly right.
And on top of that, if you're actually promoting yourself as a person who promotes a platform of unity and you have a disunifying figure that you're partnering with, none of it makes sense. So
Right.
It makes you wonder.
Right. I think it's a valid point, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. Now, y'all, that's all we're wanting to do. We're wanting to ask these questions because in asking these questions, we want you to start thinking with us. I mean, this idea that, to quote Tommy Bennett from the show that they were on together, if you don't have anything nice to say, then don't say anything at all. Listen, that's how things go by unchecked. Well, what I'm going to say is going to be negative, so it'd just be better for me not to say anything at all. Now, y'all, let's let this continue through because I want to make a final point as we
that
begin
they
to
don't
close.
think people are doing right. and that they think they have to.
And my side is I don't have to prove anything to them or anybody.
I get that too.
I don't. And I don't want to. That's a waste of time.
Right. People are doing right. and that they think they have to.
And my side is I don't have to prove anything to them or anybody.
I get that too.
I don't. And I don't want to. That's a waste of time.
Right.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, to say that you do not have to prove anything is basically going back to the caller's point. Look, I don't have to prove anything. So guess what? We don't know if you're opposed to Malvester or if in fact you're beginning to agree with him. The white race is just a bunch of devils. But listen to the attitude, friends. I don't have to prove anything. Now, would it not be better to actually get what Jesus has to say on the matter? Let's notice this. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 7, verse 15, "Beware of false prophets which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. Ye shall know them by their fruits." How are we supposed to know if you're a wolf in sheep's clothing or not? You got to prove something. You have to give us something to examine. Jesus would later go on, or earlier would say, Matthew chapter 5, verse 16, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." Do we have to prove something to people? Jesus said we did. Jesus said you have to produce fruit so that we know who you are. We have to do good works so that what? So that men may see your good works, but you don't get the glory. It's supposed to glorify your Father which is in heaven. Now, friends, we have to ask the question, does God, the God of the Bible, get any glory with Jessica Griffith, Mr. Keene, president of the SCLC, Alonzo Hall, Lawrence Campbell, Larry Campbell, and all these different ones? Does God get any glory with them working with a man that says, you know what, Jesus is not even the Son of God. Jesus is not even my son, and yet you're working with him, and you're thinking that I'm going to get the glory. Look, we ought to be able to look at the deeds that people are doing and make our own conclusions. That's what Matthew chapter 7 is telling us. Inwardly, they're ravening wolves. They're possums. They're foxes. How are you going to know who's who? You're going to know them by their fruit. But you know what? Jessica says, I don't have to produce any fruit. I do not have to prove anything to anybody. Now, y'all, that's not the attitude of a Christian. And I'm thankful that at the Church of Christ, we've got individuals like what Paul was encouraging to be. 1 Timothy 4:6, if thou put the brethren in remembrance of these things, thou shalt be a good minister of Jesus Christ, nourished up in the words of faith and of good doctrine whereunto thou hast attained. But refuse profane and old wives' fables, and exercise thyself rather unto godliness. Bodily exercise profiteth little, but godliness is profitable unto all things, having promise of the life that now is, and of that which is to come. This is a faithful saying, and worthy of all acceptation. For therefore we both labor and suffer reproach, because we trust in the living God, who is the Savior of all men, especially of those that believe. These things command and teach. Verse 12, let no man despise thy youth, but be thou an example of the believers in word, in conversation, in charity, in spirit, in faith, in purity. Jesus says you'll know them by their fruits. You've got to produce. You've got to prove something. Jesus said, let your light shine, so that men may see your good works and glorify God. Jessica says, no, I don't need to do that. I don't need to prove anything to anybody. Paul says, be an example of the believers. You know what? You can look at members of the Church of Christ, you can view them, and you can study them, and you can see the difference. Jessica Griffith is talking about, and others like her. I don't want to make this just about Jessica. This is all the preachers in this town. You got preachers in this town talking about what they're doing for the community. They're not doing anything for this community. You heard Charles talking. Why aren't any of the preachers coming and standing against the Natural History Museum? Oh, we're not supposed to judge. We're not supposed to be confrontational. We're not supposed to be fighting. We're supposed to teach love and mercy. Listen, preachers in this town, they're not getting involved in anything in this community. Jessica talking about when she's on her job, she's not thinking about us and she's not thinking about religion. Had a gentleman call in and ask her a question about his wife who died and was not baptized. Asked her, is she going to heaven or is she lost? Jessica's response, I'm not answering any religious questions tonight. Listen, friends, when you're dealing with members of the Lord's church, we don't back down. And we'll get involved in the messy issues of your life. We have a sister at the Martinsville congregation. She had a man come in to where she works. Jessica talking about when she's on her job. She's making a check. This isn't her church. Members of the Church of Christ, even when they're on the job, they're Christians. A sister had a man come in, and he was under a great deal of stress, and he didn't know her from Adam. And he just unloads on her the stresses, the problems that he's having. He's having problems with his marriage. And guess what? You think she said, look, sir, I'm at work. I can't deal with your problems. No. She got in touch with me. Well, actually, she got in touch with Eugene, gentleman whose number is here. She got in touch with Eugene Edwards. And Eugene got with me. And you know what? We went to go and try and see that man. You might be thinking to yourself, well, now you're just bragging. Look, and even then, I'm not bragging on me. I'm giving honor unto this sister for being an example of the believers. This man is hurting, truly hurting. His marriage is a wreck. Jessica Griffith's going to say, look, I'm not getting into religious stuff. But what does the Church of Christ say? Look, I'm at work, but I'm going to get you in touch with people that can help you. People that know the book and know how marriage is supposed to be and know what the Bible says about a bad marriage. Look, you're in a bad marriage, husband and wife's not treating each other well, as the Bible says they're supposed to, you can't go to heaven that way. So guess what? We're trying to get involved in that. Another brother on the job, having people attacking him because he's a member of the Lord's church. You think he says, look, fellas, I'm at work. Can't deal with this. Nope. Best of his ability, he is standing up for the truth, even on the clock. Now, y'all, who's the true Christian? We've got folks obeying the gospel, Indiana, California. Lady called Caleb and I, Sunday night after the show. And y'all saw it. She called during the show, and she's asking about suicide. You think Jessica, you call into her show asking her a religious question about suicide, you think she's going to touch that? No, she's not. But you know who will? Those that affectionately desire you. Neighbors, we are concerned about you. Concerned enough to go out, ask the hard questions, ask the questions nobody wants to ask, nobody wants to deal with, rather just sweep it under the rug. We're not willing to do that. Because that's how injustice is committed. Tune in tomorrow night for What Does the Bible Say, 8 o'clock on the Reedsville station. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the call. Always ask for What Does the Bible Say. Have a good night.